My name is Dr. Rick Sigil.
And action. Hey, Jay had a listen cartoon then.
Stress and
And action. Hey everyone, Dr. Rick here. Ben had a question about exercising for his age. He's a middle-aged guy and quite a good athlete at that. But he was wondering if there is anything else that he should be doing to improve his health. He came in for a wellness exam. So, good question, but before I get to it, if you like what you hear in my video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button to find out when I do new videos. So this is Minute Clinic, and it's the question of the day. And if you don't do anything now, then I want you to just go out there and experiment. I think 90 minutes, the basic premise is you got to move. Now, even if I have a guy that lost his legs and he's still moving. So he doesn't move like he did before and he has to use a prosthetic and a wheelchair, but he's still going. So there's really, I see him and I tell all my other patients, there's no excuse. Even for me, there's no excuse, man. He's got no legs and he's moving more than I am. And you can get down the dumps and you say, I don't have to do today. I'll do tomorrow. But really, 90 minutes a week of moderate to intense exercise is suggested. That's the American Heart Association for beating heart disease. And if you can do more than that, go for it. But if you don't do that much, then at least do 90 minutes of mild exercise or entry-level exercise, even if it's walking. But do something, because one of the things I put here is exercise is the first treatment of choice for mood disorder, especially depression. So if you get out and do 90 minutes, now whether you break that down into 15 minutes every day or 30 minutes 3 days a week, it doesn't matter. The end result, at least as far as heart disease, is you still get benefit in avoiding the disease. But I do think that it's a starting point for taking off later. Because if you don't do it, you're going to have another excuse to stop. So, other benefits. I think getting outdoors, you don't have to be exercising outdoors, but usually you got to get outdoors to get to your gym, or you sometimes will take your dog out for a walk, or you might go jog when the weather picks up. So I think getting outdoors is nice, because getting outdoors, if you watch any of my videos, and I'll put them down below, nature therapy has this way of, in studies, especially out of Japan, taking down inflammatory markers. Those are blood tests that look for specifics of inflammation that are floating around in the body because of some cancer or a heart attack or an arthritis issue. But the Japanese, there's a Japanese university that did something about Japanese forest bathing. That's what they called it. And they put subjects out in the woods for about 30 minutes, and they kept checking their cholesterol or their cortisols before and after, and they found a marked difference in cortisol and a few other markers of inflammation. And that's just with sitting in the woods. And you can sometimes get that when you exercise. You can sometimes get that when you take anti-inflammatories. You can do that when you have blood transfusions. But imagine just sitting out in the woods. So why not kill two birds with one stone? Again, the objective is longevity, right? We all want to live as long as possible and to be independent as possible during that time. If you're on a suicide mission to kill everybody and die early, well, then click this off because you're watching the wrong person. But if you want to live, not have to be getting diaper changes from a nurse, or not stuck on a machine, or not be stuck by a dialysis machine 3 days a week, then you have to invest ahead of time. You don't have to wait until your symptoms begin. Arthritis, shortness of breath, chest pain, numbness and tingling. So I would just go ahead and preemptively strike your next decade by working now. I can't tell you how many 30 to 40-year-olds are so remiss because nobody told them back when they were in their 20s, you shouldn't eat this, you should look out for this is coming because of your genes. So we have to beat, number one is we have to try to achieve longevity with independence. Number two is we have to beat the average diseases that are befuddled by Americans, a heart attack, cancer, and a neurodegenerative disorder. Number three, you have to beat your genetics. I really think that even if you have a history of breast cancer, no matter what the IARC says, you can either speed up the evolution of your cancer, or your heart attack, or you can repress it. For example, if you have a family history of heart attack or cancer and you smoke, you're going to probably speed up that gene showing itself. Now, if you have a family history of heart attack or cancer and you are mostly whole food plant-based diet, you exercise every day, keep your body mass index kind of low, you have some form of mindful practice, I think that you'll be able to repress that gene. It's been shown in Dean Ornish's work as far as telomere length and reversing early prostate cancer in situ. Now, that's cool because the stuff that he suggested for his prostate cancer, they just call it early prostate cancer patients, to reverse it, and it was successful with it, small pilot study. It's the same thing he suggested for people with heart disease. It was a vegetarian, low-fat diet, group therapy, exercise, yoga. So, I mean, you can't really overdose on that stuff, and it's not medicinal, but he still was able to reverse heart disease and be able to reverse early cancer. Now, if you have rip-roaring metastatic cancer everywhere, it's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. But that's why we got to get ahead of time into some kind of exercise or routine. Now, if you love MMA and you love rolling on the mat, I love Aikido, but if you roll on the mat you flip people on the mat, you wrestle and pin, I don't think that's the kind of exercise you want to do when you're in your 50s and 60s. Number one, if you're 50 and 60 and you go to one of those gyms that has a lot of teen or 20-year-olds, there's nothing like trying to work out with a 24-year-old guy that has a whole bunch of testosterone. He'll be not listening to you. I had a patient of mine who did do that, mixed martial arts, worked on the mat. It was a kind of a gym close by to his house. But some young idiot dislocated his shoulder because he didn't know when to stop. That's why it's very important to be careful. Now, I agree with Andy as far as acting your age, but I would say go outside your comfort zone and push the envelope. So that's why the next bullet point is you got to mingle. I think exercise is, when you're younger, a nice way to get out and meet other people that like to exercise. The opposite sex, if you're looking for a future partner, get into a Zumba class, yoga class. Usually you'll have like-minded individuals. And the cool thing about exercise or yoga, in yoga in particular, if you go to a class where everybody is into healing, you don't even have to talk to anybody, but there's something magical and inspirational about a class full of people that are getting better and feeling better and sharing breath with the universe. If you have any ailments or aches or pains, usually they're calmed down by the time you're done class. Same thing as that mob mentality when you go to a basketball game or a boxing match. Everybody is juiced up, and even if you were tired before the boxing match, you know that you'll be on fire just because it's so amped up. The energy of the room is strong. So I think it is a positive that you can take advantage of if you're at a widower, or if you're single, or if you just want to meet other people, even if you go with a couple. I think it's important to share that. I think we have a duty to share with other people how we got to our summit and maybe encourage or inspire others to do the same. There's a lot of people that are suffering out there. Finally, fighting cancer. So my mom died of pancreatic cancer 9 years ago. And she was tough as nails. She was very peaceful, and she was cool, and she was very giving to everybody. She would always make Christmas dinner and have like 12 different settings. She was so cool. But she also played tennis and I think she ran on the bike or rode the bike, and I think she did a little bit of exercise in the weight room. So cute the way she used to exercise. And she did it. I think it really, her lifestyle, I believe, postponed the expression of the cancer. And she went fast. She was diagnosed on Christmas Day, I believe, and she passed away on Valentine's Day. So it still helps to try to, even if you have a disease process, to have some regular activity that will get you out and will help you fight. No question that exercise or some kind of, whether it's strength training, cardiovascular training, or calming practice, Tai Chi, yoga, nature therapy, they all have their benefits. And when your body and muscle and mind benefit, then you know the immune system is also benefiting. And when the immune system benefits, those natural killer cells can hunt down and kick cancer in the ass. So if you smoke, if you're obese, if you're not exercising, if you're watching TV all day, if you don't sleep right, if you're drinking alcohol, you're just accelerating the cancer to express itself and be hidden from your natural killer cells. If you do everything in reverse and healthy, then that cancer is going. I always give hope to my patients and say even the worst cancers still have an option. So there's only supposed to be so many miracles in a cancer diagnosis. Well, my patients are the ones that get the miracles. I have a couple patients that have been proven already. So how do we choose? Sorry about that. How do we choose on what kind of exercise? Well, I think that you have to do a couple different things. So go outside your comfort zone. I had an acronym here. I have an acronym, and it's RUB PJs. That I got to work on that acronym, but that's the only thing I could think of. RUB stands for number 1. These are activities. Run. Number 2, balance. Number 3, push. Number 4, jump. And number 5, stretch. RUB PJs. So what's run? Well, running is what it means. You can either run on a treadmill, run up a mountain, run on a track, run on a trail. Whatever you do. You can even take a backpack and hike fast on a trail or on an incline on a mountain next to the sea. But running and walking are about the same. You just have to get out there and do it. I think it gets you to develop lactic acid tolerance in your legs. Some of my marathoners and 100-milers will really be good at that. But I think you just have to be careful about overdoing it. So some of my guys that are really invested in 100-milers, running 100 miles, or riding a century, 100 miles, your knees are going to pay for it. So you have to be wise. If you're heavy, you don't want to be doing that. If you are really crazy into it, you want to be listening to your joints. Balance. Yoga is the typical example of balance, but there's also other things that require balance, and sometimes it's ballistic balance, but balancing on one leg. I think one of the other issues at later ages is difficulty with walking and gait. So when you work on balance, like if you blindfold yourself and do Tai Chi, or if you can do a couple of the arm balances of yoga, this will get you set. It'll also keep you encouraged to watch your weight, because if you love those balanced exercises, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, you'll know that when you get a little bit too heavy, it makes it a little more challenging. So you might miss having that balance. So I think it keeps you in check. And again, that when you perform balanced exercises, hand-eye coordination is very important. And in addition, proprioception also is experienced at the joint. So you keep the joint fresh. There's something called Golgi tendon organs in each joint. There's stretch receptors that sit around where the tendon meets the muscle. And it gives you a sense or a perception in the brain by feedback from all these tiny joints about where your position is on the world, on this world that's moving at a certain speed, and in space with a world that's traveling around the sun. So it's pretty cool. But you can interpret all that data and stand up straight on one leg. That's pretty cool. So balance is important. Push. I'm talking about resistance or strength exercises. I think it's really important to have muscle. If the more muscle you have, the less you will have of osteoporosis. The more muscle you have, the more hormone you can secrete. So I think it's a valuable thing. You have to be careful. And I preferentially do not like spending an hour to an hour and a half in the gym. I have 40 hours a week. I work 50 hours a week. If you don't have time for it, don't just do the old thing you used to do as far as exercise in the gym, where you wait the set and you sit there. Usually what I see burns me up. I see young guys just sitting there looking at themselves in the mirror and sometimes going like this or going like this with tricep pose. It burns me up. But so don't look in the mirror when you're around me, and push or do some kind of regular, repetitive, set and repetition driven exercise routine. You need to have, and you can get your trainers and your physical therapists to teach you that stuff, but chest, arms, back, buys, legs, tries, calves, and trunk. That's the easiest thing to do. Then there's jumping. I think jumping or bounding is very important. That has a little bit to do with balance, but I think that every human should be doing that. We do that when we're kids. I've always wanted to do a parkour. I'm afraid to do it now because I don't want to hit my head and or break anything. But anybody that's in martial arts would do jumping, spinning, back turn, hook kicks or crescent kicks. I think that's part of martial arts. But there's nothing invigorating like doing a flip. I used to be able to do flips when I was in high school. No hands. I'd love to do that now. I'm afraid I'm going to hit something, though. So I might try it on the beach one of these days. We'll see. But I think that does give you a lot of aerial feedback of where your body is in body English. So I think it's something cool to do. If you can't, just do box jumps. Again, that kind of explosive activity you get when you land, it gives proprioception. It does build up muscle as well. And you can do that with a weight vest. You can do that with repetition and just fatigue out the muscle too. It gives you a little more of an exercise routine when you're just bored of the standard workout in the gym kind of exercises. And then finally, stretch. Stretching is very important. I think there's value to it. I am in a debate with a lot of my track coaches about the value of stretching. I see that a lot of my coaches don't want to do stretching prior to running because the studies that are out there have refuted exercise or static stretching as valuable. But if you look at these studies, and I think somebody did a meta-analysis, but the meta-analysis on all the smallest studies were like 15 people, 20 people. I think there was a 60 person, supposedly really good athletic ability. These are all underpowered studies. Bottom line is, if you look at world-class sprinters, if you look at maybe not so many world-class marathon runners, but definitely when it comes to the power of the sprinter, the 100-meter dash, the 200-meter, the 400, the 800, the long jump, the pole vaulter, I think there's potential to have damage. So pulling a muscle is not good. You always talk about pulling a hammy, but pulling a muscle is not good. I think there is value to stretching properly. There is also value to the new stuff. It's called dynamic stretching, but I think stretching by itself is an art. And I think if you can get to that point where you do stretches like in yoga and hold those poses, those are isometric positions. And there is value to isometric positions. I know a lot of yoga. I love yoga, and I wouldn't have thought that 10, 15 years ago. I would have thought, no offense, I would have thought, it's just for girls. But now I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm going to be a yoga master. But I think there's value to going outside your comfort zone and trying a couple of these things. Remember, rub PJs. So there's value to doing these things even if you're not comfortable with it. If you don't know what to do or you can't get anybody to coach you, then you have to look outside the box. Sometimes I'll have my patients try to get physical therapists to teach them, or they can get people who they know as far as previous exercisers. That's me at 18. I have two titles for bodybuilding, Mr. East Coast and Mr. Novice New Jersey. So I have some knowledge of exercise. I can teach, I just don't have any time. I have certification in yoga and meditation. I can teach, I just don't have any time. So that's why I do these things. So hopefully this makes a difference for you. Otherwise, if you can't, then one other option is every park district in the Chicago area usually puts out a little pamphlet on the preseason offerings, and most of this, the teachers that volunteer there, or they work for a nominal fee, they're entry level. They're most of them, and they're trying to get clients. So I think that it's still a beginning. It's a taste. So if you enroll in a 6 to 8 week course, that's not too much of a commitment. 1 to 2 times a week for 6 to 8 weeks, that's cool. I'd say do it, try it, see what you think. Whether it's Zumba, Tai Chi, Qigong, Crunch Fitness, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page Yoga, whatever it is, even playing organized sports, baseball, basketball. That is one thing though. When you get into semi-contact sports like basketball and you're playing with young people, you got to be careful, especially with the balls. These young guys will come around with their elbows. They probably don't think about it because they're in school, but you get a broken nose, you get a broken finger, and if you have to work manual labor, you're out for 2 weeks. So be careful what you choose. Just like my friend who got his shoulder dislocated trying to practice with MMA. So I think we have to be careful. So you kind of have to act your age, but you also have to be going outside your comfort zone to take advantage of every other option that you haven't investigated in your life. So those of you who did 3 or 4 sports in high school and college, cool, because you got a taste of a couple different exercise types. But those of you who only took gym class and or you never took any sports, seek out a life coach, seek out somebody like an exercise physiologist, or if you have a medical disease, you can ask your doctor for a physical therapy referral. And if the physical therapist is cool, they'll take care of your medical disease, whatever it is, shoulder problems, scapular dyskinesis, neck range of motion problems, low back, knee pains, ankle twisting or instability. And then, if they're nice, they'll graduate you on to show you an exercise routine that you can apply in the gym or outside or with weights on your own. So at the last, for last-ditch effort, that would be cool. So hopefully this helps, Ben, but you're healthy already. You're healthier than half of the Americans out there, probably 70 to 75%. But if we're going to make this a bulletproof continuum into our 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, then we want to try to experiment with other things. And you know, that's another thing. Swimming. I didn't even mention swimming. Swimming is always cool. It's just hard to get to a pool in Chicago. And a lot of the pools are not that warm. And I just don't like chlorine all the time. So there's other options out there. So keep your mind open. Start experimenting and hope you find anybody else that's watching this. If you have your age and your exercise of choice that you discovered on your own, put it down here. Maybe the rest of us can benefit from the same thing. I will see you next time in the clinic. Thanks.